Happier people don't avoid or suppress the so-called negative experiences or emotions. They embrace those as well. Because here's the thing, less happy people do way more of that suppression or repression. They're trying to tamp down anxiety or depression. They don't want to have those feelings. Guess what? When we do that, we push them down over here. The ones over here get tamped down as well. So if we're trying to not be anxious or depressed or angry, whatever the quote unquote negative thing is, other emotions are going to respond as well. So happier people let their whole systems flow.
Welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast with your host, Leigh Brandon. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and a warm review. And now, here is Leigh, the Radical Health Rebel, with this week's podcast.
Tom Glaser, welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. So today's episode is entitled How to Live Life from the Heart with Tom Glaser. Now, in episode 1 of the Radical Health Rebel podcast, I described the kinds of subjects that would be discussed on the show and described that I would cover any subject that may fall into any category of one or both of two models. The first being Paul Chek's 4-doctor model that he discussed in detail in episode 11, that consists of 4 doctors: diet, quiet, movement, and happiness. And today's subject definitely falls into the category of Dr. Happiness, which is considered an essential aspect of health in that model. The second model is Ken Wilber's integral model, and today's topic nicely fits into the categories of the personal and the collective interior, which includes things like thoughts, emotions, and even culture. So today's topic also fits in nicely with the mission of this podcast, which has been my mission for many years, which is to help people achieve a more fun-filled, healthy, productive, fulfilling, and happy life. So to kick things off, Tom, can you tell us a little about you, perhaps your upbringing, your educational background, and your career to date?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm really happy to be here. I appreciate this opportunity. So I'm a psychologist, so I'm a shrink. I make my money by doing psychotherapy. And like many of us in the field, that interest in part emerged from my own experiences. And we are going to be talking about living life from the heart, as you said. And part of living from the heart is embracing all of that which we encounter in life, which indeed is sometimes fulfillment and happiness and all those things you were listing. Life also involves some suffering. So as a child, I come from a really great family in so many ways. We were financially, just middle class, no problem there. My parents remained married until their deaths. So from the outside, things looked really good. From the inside, things weren't always as they might appear. There was way too much alcohol use in my family. One of my parents was, I would call a rageaholic. So horrible temper, really there's 4 children, I'm the third, really verbally did a number on us. And then starting in junior high school, I was just mercilessly, and to call it like bullying or teasing would not truly describe it. So that verbal abuse there as well for being different. So I was called fag. The word fag was, scrawled across my locker more times than I care to remember or could count. So I didn't really feel totally safe. I didn't feel totally unsafe in either environment because I did decently academically. I connected well with teachers. I always had a set of friends. So parts of school were good and parts were horrendous. And same at home, right? It was stable in many, many ways compared to so many people. And then there were these unpredictable anger outbursts directed at us. So from my own wounding, in part, and just because I have an interest in human behavior, and I had a phenomenal high school psychology teacher, by the way, Mr. Ryan, who just lit this fire under me for understanding human behavior. I became a psychologist. So that's what I do for work. I'm so many other things. Of course, I'm a teacher. I teach workshops. I was telling you, I'm a fairly newly minted yoga teacher. I love to garden. I love to walk and run. I've taken up pickleball. I don't play well, but I'm playing some pickleball here and there. I'm an animal lover. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I love being an uncle and a great uncle. So in a pretty quick nutshell, that's an overview of me.
That's great. Say. What was interesting was that one of the questions I was going to ask you is what makes Tom happy? And you even, you've come out with quite a few things already.
Yes.
And the reason I wanted to ask that is because, and again, you might want to possibly correct me on this, but most people that are happy, when you ask them what makes you happy, they can just reel off what those things are. But then when you speak to people who are perhaps not so happy, and you say to them, well, okay, what makes you happy? And it actually is quite a difficult question for them to answer.
They're stumped.
Yeah, I mean, I was at a friend's party about a year ago, and it was a garden party, and it just so happened it was quite it's at the end of the night, or very close to the end of the night, and I was speaking to a friend, and then another friend walked in, and he has, we know he struggles with his mental health, and he starts saying things, and my other friend, she's a therapist as well. And she just said to him, I almost said his name then, I won't say his name. And she said, what makes you happy? And I don't know how long, it felt like 10 minutes, but it was probably a minute and a half. And he couldn't think of one thing.
Oh, sad.
But the thing was, I could have, and I didn't want to, but I could have said to him, what about music? He DJs. So.
Oh, so you knew at least one possibility. Right? Yes.
I know he loves being around his friends.
Yes.
Right. So I could have reeled them off for him.
Yes.
Even though, I mean,
which is good.
I wanted him to do it.
Well, that's brilliant, to give his brain the chance to sit there and do its thing was good. That's a good exercise.
So, but it was good. It was good that, you answered that question even before I asked it.
And that's probably just the beginning, right? We could go more into depth at some point if we want.
But what's great is that, you're practicing what you preach, because you can answer that question without hesitation.
Leigh, it's so important to do that. Practice what we preach, right? If we don't do that, then we're not standing in integrity. We cannot show up in the world in the way that we need to. We can't help others if we are not doing what we request others to do. It's so essential. So you're absolutely right. I do practice what I preach to the very best of my ability. All that said, I am far from perfect, right? My diet is...
None of us are perfect, right?
Yes. I believe in eating really well. I so believe in nutrition, and it's a hobby of mine. It's really fun. And, I had an ice cream sandwich a couple weeks ago, right?
But it's not, even diet's not meant to be perfect, right?
Correct. Correct.
You know,
Why not enjoy life a little bit? Yes. Or a
um,
lot.
absolutely, absolutely. So you've even started to cover my next question as well.
Okay.
So it might be something you want to expand on, possibly. So my next question is, what was your investigation? Sorry, what was your motivation to investigate the subject of happiness, which culminated in your book? That culminated in your book, Full Heart Living.
Yes. So I had my dream job, Leigh. I couldn't wait to get up in the morning and go to work. For 7 years, I lived my dream job. I was a senior counseling psychologist at a small college. So I got to do the one-on-one work that I'm really jazzed about in psychotherapy. And I got to teach, about wellness promotion topics. And I got to train the orientation leaders and the resident advisors, all things that I'm incredibly passionate about and have a background in. And so I had a plan for my life. I was going to retire at this job. I could do this job for the rest of my life, or the rest of my working life, I thought, until a coworker showed up who totally changed the dynamic of our entire department. Very strong personality. And this person hated the ground that I walked on. And I tried everything I could think of to make it work with this person, and it didn't work. And this person undermined me, didn't pay our vendors, brought the programs that I had been working on for 7 years to a screeching halt because they didn't approve of them. And they had more power than I did. They held the budget for those programs. And finally, my husband sat me down one day and said, "You're miserable, and this job is not worth it, and you've got to quit." And I was like, "Oh, expletive." I knew he was right. I just knew. I'd been avoiding it. It still took me a long time, but I did end up quitting that job eventually. But I was depressed, right? Because the job wasn't what it used to be. I had this plan that I was attached to, and I had a lot of grief because I was giving up these things that I adored. And in the midst of my depression, I noticed really happy people all around me, from the guy who cuts my hair to somebody I was in a play with, to the woman who used to office next door to me at the time. And I just got really curious, and I started noticing, what are happier people doing? And then I got braver, and I started asking them questions, and it snowballed into this project, which started with videotaped interviews. So I have like mini documentaries of me interviewing these happy people, or happier people, that I personally know. And on the first day of filming, I'm on break outside, and I had known for years that I would write a book one day, but I didn't know what it was going to be about. And I had an epiphany. It's like, this is what my book is going to be about, because it was one of the best days of my life, because I'm sitting with happier people talking about what makes them tick. There's the contagion effect, right? It's contagious. My spirits soared. I'm like, this is what I could do day in and day out. This is what I'm going to write my book about.
Awesome. So probably quite an important question I've got for you next.
Okay.
What is happiness?
Oh my gosh, such a hard. I almost went to that when we were talking earlier about how happier people can list. They can list what makes them happy, in a split second. Where it's the reverse with less happy people. They have to really think about it. So even though most of us, when we are feeling happy, can list what makes us happy or activities that we really enjoy, ask them to define the term. Most people get stuck for longer than that minute and a half that your friend did. It's a very hard term to define. So here's what I've come to. It's a subjective term, and it changes over time. So subjective, what does that mean? And it changes over time. It's personal, it's individual. And have you heard of Gretchen Rubin by any chance?
Well, just so happens that I have her book.
Come
right
on,
here.
There it is. You're holding it up. Have you read it yet?
I haven't read it yet, but I actually bought that because I read about it in your book.
Oh,
and
right.
I thought that sounds really good. So
It's so good.
I haven't read it yet, but I will be reading it.
So that's the first of Gretchen Rubin's, I don't know, 5 or 6 books. And I can't remember if it's in that book or subsequently that she wrote about this very question: how do we define happiness? So even science can't define the term for us, right? I can't remember I'm going to just guess 17 different definitions in scientific literature. So even science can't.
I guess it's like, how do you define what love is?
How can we put words to something like love? That's a perfect example. Or art. This is what she came to. We can't define art in words, but we know it when we see it, she says. And beyond that, it isn't as important that we define it as that we are working toward it or striving toward it, that it's a motivating force for the good in our lives, generally speaking. And I really like that. So we don't have to define it. We know what it is when it's there. We know when we feel it. And to use it as a force for good in our lives and to help make the world a better place, hey, that is a win-win.
Yeah, I like that. Would you agree that happiness is an emotion?
Yes, it's a state of being. Yes, I think it is an emotion.
And would you suggest there's any difference between happiness and joy?
I think there is, but I don't have. Again, I think others have put really good words to that better than I could in this moment. I'd have to look it up a little to say more. Joy feels pure to me, deeper. Happiness feels broader, a little more general. But
gotcha. So joy is a bit more focused, if you like.
I'm thinking of picking up. I mentioned my love of being a great uncle. When I hold a new great niece or nephew in my arms for the first time and gaze into their eyes, that's a moment of pure joy. I'm happy in that moment, but I want to name it as joy, right? There's, it's like,
yeah.
That's why I say I feel like it goes deeper. It's more pointed.
Yeah. Well, I'll be experiencing that in the next month. I think I'll be becoming a great uncle for the first time. So
congratulations, Leigh. That's so exciting.
So that might be an experience that I go through myself as well.
Absolutely. I suspect you will. You do love being an uncle?
Yep, an uncle's good. I mean, they're all grown up, and but yeah, do love being an uncle.
So you'll love being a great uncle.
It's very different from being an uncle to younger kids. Now, they're grown up, but it's still good. It's just different.
It's just different. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. So another question for you. Why is happiness important?
Yeah. There are those who believe it's not and that it doesn't deserve academic study. Not that I'm doing an academic study. I'm not. My belief from the get-go was there are other people who do academic writing well. Mine is way more for the lay person, just the everyday person. It's important because happier people are healthier physically. Happier people use medical, because they don't need to use the medical system as much. Happier people do more good in the world and less harm in the world. Happier people volunteer more. They donate more money. There's that contagion effect that I talked about of really any emotion. So if we tend to be happier, we're going to spread that around. We're going to make people happier around us. And that goes for the teller at the bank, to the, the cashier, even if we're just buying a pack of gum and we have, less than 30 seconds with someone. If we look them in the eye and ask them how their day is going, we can lift their spirits.
It's interesting. I had an experience today. The gym that I go to, it's about 500 meters from where I live, but to get there, I have to cross a river. Luckily, there's a bridge. I don't have to swim across, so I can walk across the bridge.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And as you go over the bridge, well, I actually have to cross a canal and then the river. So there's two bridges, and I just happened to notice there was a lady walking behind me with a pushchair. But when you get over the first bridge, it goes in two different directions across two different bridges. But I was probably 10 yards or so in front of her. And I thought, do I stop and ask her, does she want a hand getting the pushchair down the stairs if she's going the same way as me? And something in my head just went, she's going the other way. So I thought, okay, I kind of generally listen to my intuition. Yeah. But just as my foot hit the first step, I heard, excuse me. And I turned around and she went, would you mind giving me a hand with my pushchair? Oh. And I said, no, absolutely not. No problem at all. So I helped her with a pushchair down the steps.
Yeah.
And she just said to me, oh, thank you so much. I hope you have a really good day. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? And, it's
how
a small
did you
thing.
Feel, Leigh? Tell me how you felt.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, amazing, right? That's such a simple act. It took you all of a minute or two.
Oh, not even that. Probably 10 seconds.
10 seconds? Oh, it was quick. So quick.
Yeah. There's only the steps are quite long, but there's only about 5 of them.
Oh,
so
yeah, flight of stairs. Yeah.
But obviously she was in a really good mood. She must have been in a really good mood because I could feel it. I could feel that she was in a good mood. I feel that she was happy. And as you said, that radiated to me.
Yes. You were affected by it.
Yeah. And then, it was probably 50 yards to the gym. By the time I got to the gym, I was feeling really good.
Yes. There's a little, a kick in your step, as we say.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. Oh, I have a similar example from years ago now. I was driving on a pretty crowded road, stop and go traffic, but just a 2-lane street. And I could see this woman on the other side of the road, a pedestrian. I could tell she needed to cross the street. And I stopped my car and just, gave her the indication, I'll yield to you. Please, I can tell you need to get across the street. Just please go. And so there's no words. I'm in my car. The windows are closed. It's winter. And so she did so. And when it was safe, she went in front of me. And as she crossed in front of my car, she made very clear eye contact and smiled and gave me that nod of appreciation. So this is 10 or 15 years ago now. Again, let's say 15 seconds total. I did a little kindness. She acknowledged my kindness, made eye contact. This still stays with me because I was like, oh my gosh, that felt so good to do something good and have it acknowledged back. There was this reciprocity that boosted my mood.
That's great.
And here's another thing about both of these examples. You were open. First of all, you mentioned intuition. From the beginning, you're open to your intuition and you were open to receiving her energy, right? You were clear. You said she must have been having a really good day. You could feel it, right? There's a way we can go through the world. And I feel like I do this less. It's not like I'm totally immune to it, but I know I did it more before I started studying mindfulness. But there's a way we can go through the world and be so caught up in our own thoughts and feelings that we are not open to those experiences and we block them. So the same thing might have happened. And if you were in a different mindset, you might not have picked up as much. You still might have had some effect, but you might have sort of shielded some of that effect. And so this is very important to us. If we want to be happier, is just noticing these mind states and these fields that we give off and the way that we can interact even with strangers. Both these examples, these are strangers. We don't know these people. It's very brief, but they had a noticeable impact on us. You know, so wake up, people, I'm saying. And look for these experiences even. Go ahead.
You know, there was another experience, but I was actually walking back from the gym one day.
Yes.
And there was a guy walking with, I'm guessing it was his daughter. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
She was probably, I'm guessing about 18, 19, but she had Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And when I got to within about 5 yards, she gave me this big smile and just said, "Good morning."
Oh.
And, you know, it was just lovely. It was just so nice. And so this was about 2 years ago. She was the only person, her and her dad were the only people I saw on my walk back that weren't wearing a face mask. And I just thought everyone else could potentially be smiling at me and I wouldn't even know. And I just thought, how sad is that?
Very sad. Oh, that's such a downside to the masking of the pandemic. Not that I'm complaining, because it kept us healthier. Whew.
So apart from healthier, any other reasons why it's important to be happy?
Well, like I was saying, happier people do more good deeds in the world. They volunteer more. They do more good deeds. They help other people be happier. It's not just selfish. It's not just for ourselves that we pursue happiness. It's not just hedonistic. I want to feel good all the time. If you're going to do what I call true happiness, and why I titled the book as I did, Full Heart Living, Conversations with the Happiest People I Know. Happier people live with their whole heart. And that is part of why I started this conversation with where I did, because my heart is heavy sometimes. I suffer sometimes. Happier people don't avoid or suppress the so-called negative experiences or emotions. They embrace those as well. Because here's the thing, less happy people do way more of that suppression or repression. They're trying to tamp down anxiety or depression. They don't want to have those feelings. Guess what? When we do that, we push them down over here. The ones over here get tamped down as well. So if we're trying to not be anxious or depressed or angry, whatever the quote unquote negative thing is, other emotions are going to respond as well. So happier people let their whole systems flow. They find a way to support themselves. This is a phrase I love to use: support themselves through whatever they're experiencing, even if it's hardship. Knowing that it's temporary, just like I know if I'm feeling happy, it's temporary, like any other emotion. It's going to move through me and be replaced, kind of like the clouds that go past through in the sky. Emotions come and go.
Yeah.
So when I'm down, I'm down. I know I'm down. I know I'm sad. I use it as motivation. Like it's telling, to me, it's just a signal from my insides. My body's telling me something. What's the message here?
Yeah.
What do I need? It might be that I need rest. It might be that I need to do something to stand up for myself. It might be that I just haven't eaten in a while, and I just get my blood sugar up there, right? Your body is just telling you something all the time.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say, because this is a topic that I've discussed on a previous podcast, what would you say grief is telling people?
It's telling them whatever it is they have lost means to them.
Yeah, I like that.
The more it meant to us, the more it means to us, the more we grieve. That job really meant a lot to me. I was identified with that job. I had to really grieve it. Both my parents are gone now. Though I mentioned a little bit about my experiences growing up earlier. It wasn't always, happy. Of course not. No one has that. but they're my parents, my only parents in the entire world.
Yeah.
And I still have a relationship with both of them, but I don't contact them in the same way, right? Things have really shifted.
Yeah.
It's different. So I continue to grieve them, though it's been several years. Yeah, grief just lets us know how much whatever that was meant to us.
I mean, I see some people, they kind of get stuck with grief. It's almost like they don't let it out, if you like, or deal with it in whichever way they need to deal with it.
Well, in Western culture is not a good teacher for grief, right? Western culture is about the new and the moving on and individualism and getting stuff done and conquest. And it's not that all those things are terribly bad. There's good in them. There's some tremendous good things there, but it's not the whole shebang. I kind of lost my train of thought there. What was the question?
Well, I was just going to add there that, you know, when you look at particularly women in the Middle East, when they're grieving, they're literally wailing.
Yes.
And they're just letting out that grief.
Yes.
Whereas someone, let's say an English person, particularly a man, you know, if they're suffering with grief, you know, what do we tend to do over here? We keep that stiff upper lip, right?
Right.
Oh, I've got to be strong for everyone else.
Right.
But then what are they doing? They're just trapping that emotion in their body.
Correct. Exactly.
You know?
That's right. You talked about it being stuck. Yes. So it's not because we don't have great teachers in our culture. We do, but it's not the overall force in our culture. We're taught to take a pill. If you're sad, go on antidepressants, right? But really that is our cultural imperative.
Yeah.
Something's going on, take a pill. Versus like in indigenous cultures, like perhaps what you were referring to, those women, as they're wailing, they're leaning into their grief. They're allowing their whole body to express it. Whereas, right, those of us in more Western cultures, right, we're taught to push it down. And then, yes, if we do that, it gets stuck. It literally gets stuck. There isn't the movement that we need to move through and for it to process in our whole system, in our cells, in our body, in our nervous system. Nervous systems and bodies need movement. They don't do well under, contraction. They need movement.
Yeah, I remember some years ago, I'd studied the body talk system, which is a system of energy medicine. And I remember learning in that system that when we have an emotion, it has three ways of being cleared from the body. One is through the mouth. So obviously expressing verbally, screaming, whatever it might be. The other way is through the digestive system. Now, quite interestingly, I was a body talk practitioner for some years, and sometimes you do a technique on someone to deal with a particular issue, and you would hear their tummy rumble.
Yeah.
And that was the sign that whatever it was had left the body or was leaving the body. And it was just amazing. Like, you just think, wow, that's just incredible. Now, the third, well, it's not really releasing the emotion. What would happen is, and I believe this is originally from traditional Chinese medicine, but the emotions, or the halfway house of the emotions, is the diaphragm. And then from the diaphragm, the emotions would either come up or go down and be released from the body. The other way is that they would be either stuck in the diaphragm, which as a manual therapist, I know happens because you can release the diaphragm and people just start crying their eyes out.
Yeah.
Or it leaves the diaphragm and actually gets stored in tissue. So you mentioned nerves, but it could be an organ, it could be the fascia in the body.
Right. Yes.
And obviously the traditional Chinese medicine system relates particular organs with particular emotions. So like the liver would be anger and the lungs is grief, etc.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really important that we deal with those emotions.
Who needs grief going into our organs? Right?
Mm.
Right? That just doesn't even sound good. Right?
Mm.
Yeah. So find a way to release so it doesn't have to go into our organs and cause illness. Yeah. Just avoid it. Avoid it. Yeah. If you possibly can. And here's the other thing. In my experience, release of emotions is done best within the context of a relationship, whatever that relationship is. So it could be your best friend or a family member or a mentor or, a therapist, a doctor, a practitioner. But there's something about holding it together, having an experience together that, like the safety and feeling known and understood, not enduring, the hardest nights of our lives completely alone.
Well, I know from my own experience as a practitioner that, probably one of the biggest things I can do as a practitioner is make sure that whoever's talking to me, as in the client, when they're talking to me, I make sure that they understand that I've heard what they've said and I've understood what they've said, because people ultimately want to be understood.
Yes.
Right.
It's essential.
And what I see in, let's call it Western medicine, is that a patient goes to a medical doctor. The medical doctor doesn't generally spend any real time making sure that they've understood the person and they've let the person know that they've been understood. And instead they say, well, this is what you need to do. And now the person hasn't been understood. And sometimes I can literally see in someone's eyes when I'm talking back to them and saying, okay, what I've understood from what you've just said is, and you just see their eyes change. It's like, someone's actually listened to me. Yes. You're the first person. I've had this problem for 10 years. You're the first person that's ever listened to me, and you can just see the happiness in their eyes, Well, it's probably relief. It's probably relief more than happiness, but it's like, oh, someone's actually listened to me.
And tried. Even if you're not 100% accurate, yes, the fact that you made the attempt means so much to people. And
well, even if you have slightly misunderstood, they correct you.
Exactly. And sometimes that's helpful.
Yeah.
Like they go a little deeper. You get it a little bit off, but then they go, oh no, what I really mean is
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful moments of connection, human connection, which is imperfect and essential. Absolutely essential to thrive.
It's perfect in its imperfection.
Exactly. By the way, might I use this opportunity to talk about my conversation sparks, Leigh? So
sure, yeah.
Because that's what this tool does, is teaches people to do exactly what you're talking about, or reminds people, as the case may be. So just very briefly, what this product came out of the public speaking gigs that I did when my book came out. So I was going around doing kind of a traditional book talk, reading portions of the book, hoping, and I would end the talk saying this exact thing: I hope I have inspired you to connect more deeply with other people, with yourself, and your passions, because those are the top 3 things I learned from being with the happiest people I know. They connect really deeply in those ways.
Thanks for watching the Radical Health Rebel YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to share with your friends and family, or share via your social media. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to receive notifications of new video clips from the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode, completely ad-free, plus premium content, and join the Radical Health Rebel Patreon community, head on over to the Radical Health Rebel Patreon channel at www.patreon.com/Radical Health Rebel. Thanks again for watching.